Hello guys, and welcome back to a new episode. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. And I'm glad to be back to making these videos. And in today's episode, we are going to continue something we started last year, which is the GEAR Convo. And today I'm going to go back to making a new episode on the GEAR Convo. So without wasting much time, let's get into today's video. Let's go. So the first question is, I want a camera that can do live production and also record at the same time. And also, that camera should be available for renting here in Ghana. So if you want a camera that can shoot or can do live broadcasting and also record at the same time, I have three major cameras I'm going to recommend to you. First one being the Fx3. The Fx3 will be my first choice because that camera is capable of doing live broadcasting and also it is also capable of recording at the same time. Now, why will I select the Fx3? Because the Fx3 has an inbuilt fan and can keep the camera cool when you are doing your live stream. So there's not going to be any overheating problem. And that is a very, very good thing for a camera to have when you want to use it for live broadcasting. Also, it has a big HDMI port, which is very, very good when you're doing live broadcasting because it's a very sustainable port that hardly breaks on you. So the second camera I'm going to recommend that you can rent right here from Ghana will be the Canon C70. So the Canon C70 is also a very good camera. It also has built-in cooling system that keeps the camera cool whilst using it. Also, it can also record and stream at the same time. It also has a very big HDMI port, which is very, very, very key. Also, one advantage the C70 has over the Fx3 is that it has a very big battery that can last long. Some last from the range of 3 hours to like 6 hours, which is very good when you are doing live streaming, so you don't have to be changing batteries all the time. And also, one key feature that the C70 has that the Fx3 doesn't have is a built-in ND filter. So in case you are shooting outdoor, you can make good use of the built-in ND filter. Now, why didn't I make the C70 my first choice? The reason why I didn't make the C70 my first choice is that it's a Super 35 sensor. So the sensor is smaller than that you find in the Fx3, and that is why the Fx3 was my first choice. So my third camera of choice for a situation like this would be the Blackmagic Pocket 6K. Why is this camera good for live streaming and recording at the same time? Now, also, just like the other cameras, the Pocket also has a cooling system that cools the camera. That means a fan that actually cools the camera whilst recording. You also can record onto an SSD and you can record onto an SD card as well. But the only problem I have with the Pocket 6K is that it lacks autofocus. Even though Blackmagic has now introduced some sort of autofocus system into the Blackmagic 6K, I wouldn't like to, select that camera based on its autofocus feature. But one thing that the Blackmagic also has is that the Blackmagic battery is very, very, very terrible. But it has a very nice system of delivering power to the camera, which is through its proprietary power port on the camera. So you can connect a V-mount to it and connect it directly into the camera and have a long-lasting battery life whilst using your Blackmagic 6K Pocket. Also, one thing I didn't mention on the Fx3 is that the Fx3 also can be powered directly, but you would have to use the Type-C port, which sometimes, somehow, if you don't do it in the right way, you might cause problem to your camera. So these are going to be my three choices: the Fx3, the C70, and the Blackmagic Pocket 6K. So the second question is, does sensor size matter if my videos are just for YouTube? Well, if you are making videos for YouTube, I don't think sensor size really matters. You just have to know what you are doing, actually. Most cameras that we have, or most cameras that people use for YouTube videos, would be the full frame, the Super 35, that is the crop sensor, and also the Micro Four Thirds sensor. These are the three common sensors that you can actually find, even though we have the 1-inch sensors and all that, and the ones in the action cameras and the DJI Pocket or Osmo Pocket 3s and the rest. Let's just put those ones in the different categories and let's talk about cameras. That's the micro four third cameras, the Super 35 cameras, and the full frame cameras. Now, you just have to know, just as I said earlier on, you just have to know what you are doing. The most important thing, some of the things that I think you should be aware of if you are using any of these sensors would be the lens choices, because when you are using a lens, let's say a 50mm on a full frame sensor, the focal length that you're going to have on that particular lens will be different from the focal length that you're going to have on a crop sensor and on a micro four third camera. Also, the bokeh or how it reacts to, or the shallow depth of field of that particular lens is going to be lesser when you start dropping down. Now, one thing that you have to also be aware of is some of these sensors can be very, very terrible in low light. Some of these lower ones, that is the crop sensor and the micro four third cameras, some of them can be very terrible in low light situations. So you just have to be aware of these things. And when you are dropping down, you can use a crop sensor camera. I've used crop sensor cameras, for so many videos of mine, and people didn't even notice that I just knew what I was doing. I just made sure I got a very fast glass, and I was very, very key on my focal length I was putting on that particular camera, and make sure that I have very good light setup in the place. So these are some of the things that you just need to be mindful of, but I don't think sensor size really matters when it comes to making YouTube videos. Now, the third question is, why does my Canon R50 keep stopping right after I start recording, or few minutes after I start recording? Now, the causes of these can really vary. There are so many things that can cause your camera to stop recording automatically whilst it hasn't reached its recording limit. Now, when it comes to the Canon R50, its record limit is around, even though it doesn't have that old 30-minute, record limits that Canon used to have on their cameras, this particular camera can, record up to like the 1 hour mark. On a normal day, you can record until the 1 hour mark, and maybe probably after that will stop automatically. But if your camera stops before that 1 hour mark, then it means there's a problem. And some of these problems can be, maybe probably your camera is overheating. Now, the Canon R50 doesn't have a system or a cooling system in the camera that kind of cools the cameras down when it heats up. So the moment that camera heats up, it's going to stop recording because it's overheating. So overheating can be one of the causes. Now, secondly, this is one of the things that people don't really take notice of. The SD card you are using in your camera can cause your camera to stop recording. So check and make sure that the speed that the speed of the SD card that you are using is applicable to the frame rates or the resolution that you are shooting on your camera. Some SD cards can shoot in high resolution and in high frame rate. So the moment you put that SD card in your camera and you start recording in those higher thresholds, it would automatically stop because it can't read the information coming to it quickly. So that can be also the problem. So these two things, either the camera is overheating or the SD card you are using isn't the right SD card. So guys, that will be all for today. Thank you for the questions and see you in my next video. Let's go.